So an important agency needs to hire more, but they can't, at least not right now. This is one of the agencies that pay their people the absolute most, exceeding over $200,000. They need accountants, they need IT specialists, examiners, the list goes on and on. But there's a three-part problem that we're facing here. Number one is the hiring freeze. The latest executive order has made the hiring freeze, essentially, it's indefinite. The same restrictions that we were under when it came to the 9-month hiring freeze is the same thing. Today, into 2026, it's the same three categories: public safety, national security, immigration enforcement. You need to be able to have your job fall into one of those categories. If not, you need a waiver. It's a lengthy process. A lot of people don't understand that. If you go on usajobs.gov, you can see over 8,000 jobs right now. But we're still, for all intents and purposes, we are under a hiring freeze. The second thing was the government shutdown. Over 40 days, the government was shut down. A lot of HR specialists, they were furloughed. They could not take action towards any hiring process. So that slowed things down. And then the third thing, people stopped applying in a lot of agencies. This should not be a mystery. Why did they stop applying? You know why they stopped applying. It was evident that the administration did not want to encourage people. Unless you go to ICE, they have $50,000 bonuses over there. Unless you go to ICE, there was no encouragement. So all of this, it hurts a lot of agencies like HUD, Education Department, USDA, EPA, the list goes on. But today we're talking about the SEC. So a quarter of the SEC right now, they will be eligible to retire within the next 2 years. Not the next 5, not the next 10, the next 2 years. You could be losing a big chunk of this agency. In this agency, you can see people on the high end getting paid $250,000, $260,000 a year. The workers in the SEC, they're not on the GS pay scale. They're on the SK pay scale. Why does that exist? What are we talking about? SK, what is that about? Okay, so about 20 to 25 years ago, the SEC realized that its compensation was not attracting people, right? So they said, hey, we got to pay more money, because they were competing with Wall Street. They were competing with other talent, with other private companies that were able to pay their people a lot more. Now, once SEC gets the green light, which I believe probably will be in 2026, because right now, if you go on usajobs.gov, if you go on there right now, they're not hiring. There's no job announcement, right? Because it's hard to make a case that the jobs in the SEC fall under one of those three categories I mentioned. So they need to get waivers, but they need to hire. So I believe that they will start hiring at some point in 2026. Now, the OIG conducted an investigation, the Office of Inspector General, to see what's the deal with their staffing problems. Number one, the SEC wasted a lot of money when it comes to ineffective recruitment sources. They spent over $200,000, and that generated only 6% of the applicants and only 8% of the people they actually hired. So there were 6 paid sources that produced zero qualified applicants. These are cases where they're spending tens of thousands of dollars. And I really think it comes down to these hiring events. Hiring events, oftentimes, if it's like a large one, they charge the employer to be present. So that could be the private company, it could be the agency. So what ends up happening from the agency perspective is you have all these people milling about. They're not specialized in their search or their focus. They're just seeing what's out there. So it's not really a productive way. Oftentimes, it's not a productive way to spend money. And SEC, they were actively paying recruiters. Not every agency does this, but the vast majority of all their hires, 93% of the people they ended up hiring, it came from either 3 sources: usajobs.gov, you know that, LinkedIn, and employee referrals. Now, here's something really interesting about who gets hired. Because out of the people who applied on usajobs.gov, that's people like you and me were applying, only 2.5% were hired. From the people from LinkedIn, and this is usually a redirect, but they have a URL. It shows that it's coming from LinkedIn. From the people that applied from LinkedIn, it was about 3%. 3% were hired. But when it comes to SEC employee referrals, 14%. So that's like 7 times as much. It skyrockets. And this is where the old adage of it matters who you know, that's where it comes from. So even in the public sector, even in the federal government, who you know can benefit you. I've been in the meetings, right? I've been in the Teams meetings, the conference rooms, where the hiring manager is asking other team members, hey, do you know anybody who would be good for this role? Could you please email me their resume after this meeting? Those conversations happen. They will continue to happen. So it is important to grow your network. But you still can get hired through usajobs.gov. That's the way the vast majority of the public are able to attain their first government job. So don't stop doing that. Okay, so the second finding was the time to hire data was misleading. So the SEC was doing something completely different than how the OPM measures the time to hire. The SEC did not measure onboarding delays or candidate acceptance timing. Now, those two things are huge. Onboarding delays, that could have something to do with your security team, or maybe something pops up in the background check. When it comes to candidate acceptance timing, this is when you, the applicant, you've been applying dozens of places. So maybe you have 2 or 3 job offers that you're entertaining and you're comparing them. You're trying to negotiate salary. All of that is taking time. So when you don't add those 2 factors for the time, it makes it seem like the SEC is hiring faster than it actually was. And this becomes more important now because OPM wants to reduce the time to hire to 80 days. Now, of course, that's not going to be possible when you're looking at law enforcement positions, but for a lot of the administrative type positions, you should be able to hire, hopefully, 80 days or less. That's what they want to do. But in a little bit of good news, when it comes to the OIG findings with the SEC, the hiring managers were actually happy with the quality of hires. So 95 to 97% of the hiring managers said, hey, the person that we hired, they ended up being a quality hire. Now, the main challenges when it comes to not enough people applying, there's a few of them, okay? Let's talk about it. Number 1 is the limited candidate pool. So they're looking for specialized individuals. They're not that many. They're not just floating around. You have to go find them. You have to entice them. And unfortunately, we're in a time right now where, okay, you might be able to compete financially. When it comes to compensation, you might be okay. But can you compete with workplace flexibility? Are you willing to offer telework? In a lot of situations, you're not. That's going to hurt you. Okay, then there's the complexity of the process, the federal hiring process. If you're trying to attract private sector workers, it's not attractive. Looking at the hiring process, it looks convoluted. It looks, like an antique relic of the past. And then you have the hiring timeline delays, and we talked about that earlier. The bottom line is the quality that they experience is high, but the hiring pipeline is slow and it's expensive. So the exact professionals that the SEC is looking for here, I mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and say it again. They're looking for IT, they're looking for legal, they're looking for financial analysts, accountants, and policy analysts. So while these job announcements might not be presently shown on usajobs.gov, keep an eye out next year in 2026. When it comes to the recommendations of OIG, because that's how this whole thing works, OIG does an investigation, then they have findings, and they present it to leadership. Leadership has a chance to either concur or non-concur, and in this case, leadership agreed with pretty much everything. Now, the recommendations were to monitor the ROI with recruitment sources, to build out accuracy with their data to make it more reliable, and to use the government time to hire metrics. So all of that should be incorporated here shortly. In addition to this, we have another agency that's ramping up to hire. It doesn't pay anywhere near as high as what we've been talking about, but many people will still come out the woodworks to apply to these brand new jobs. There's over 1,000 of them hitting in 2026. Should you entertain it? Should you apply? If you want to know the answer to that, I want you to check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.